Once again, this is Gabe Morales, and if you like our channel, please hit the like and subscribe button. Today we have a guest with experience in corrections, many years. In particular, he dealt with prison gangs, and as you know, I worked at Folsom Prison. I dealt with a lot of these same groups, but he's going to tell us about his experience, in particular dealing with the Aryan Brotherhood. Please help me welcome Mr. J.R. Outen. How are you today, sir?
Good, brother. Good to see you again. It's been a long time.
Yeah. We talked together a couple times, I know, and we have some mutual friends. In fact, I just communicated with Brian Perry this morning. So, yeah, it's a small world.
Oh, you did?
Yes, I did. He's doing
my
great.
Twin.
Yes. Yeah. You already know. All right, brother. So tell us, where were you born?
That's what they used to call us. Yeah, we were twins.
Right. I remember. So tell us, where were you born and where'd you grow up?
Well, you know, I was born in Michigan and only there a couple of years. Mom and daddy was from North Carolina. So, you know, stayed in the Carolinas for a little while, you know, a few years. And then daddy decided to get out of the trees up here in the South and back here in the South, and then wanted to move in the grape fields over there in Central California. So we ended up going over there and staying there for several years. And you know, I ended up working, you know, just regular out of high school and stuff. But go ahead.
Okay, so then after high school, when did you and why did you decide to join the California Department of Corrections?
Well, actually, I wanted to be a trooper, you know, a highway patrol, but they had a height limit back then. So I didn't meet the height limit. I was only 5'5". And so I was going to a church, you know, for a few years, and this guy was in uniform. He had just got out of the academy, and he was in his CDC full, you know, Class A uniforms. They acknowledged him and had a little thing for him and got me interested, and I talked to him a little bit. And so that Monday morning, I went ahead and got my applications together and started submitting it and whatever. And so that was in about 1986 or 87. So
that's when I joined
and got it through.
Yep. That's
yeah, I would think I was right after you.
Yeah. So tell us, what institutions did you work at, JR?
Well, I started in Soledad, which, of course, you know what Soledad is. They used to call it the Gladiator School back then, 1989. So about January or so. And started there, was there about 4 years. And I mean, I know we're going to get into the gangs and stuff, but actually, honestly, I got into being kind of the yard / facility that I worked on as a gang investigator there on that yard. My 7th month in the department, it just really intrigued me. So.
All right. Well, you know, I
worked there, like I said, 4 years.
Yeah. At New Folsom, you know, I was not assigned to the gang unit, but I worked the yard and I worked the violence control unit. So yeah, I was, you know, there's some officers that just do their 8 and hit the gate, but I was never one of those. I was one always pulling, you know, ID cards. You know, who are you? You know, where are you from? Let me see your ink. You know, all that kind of stuff. And I took interest in that. So even though I was not on the squad, I was very familiar with those groups. So then, when did you get assigned to IGI, the Institutional Gang Investigator Squad?
Well, I'll kind of go through it here real quick. After 4 years of Soledad, I transferred over to Corcoran. And I worked there about almost 2 years. And I actually applied. I applied over there on the squad, got denied, you know, just one of those things. But it was kind of neat when I transferred over there. They assigned me to the squad for a few days. So, which was kind of, you know, it was good from the guys. And of course, down through the years, we ended up working together anyways. I knew that Pleasant Valley State Prison there in Coalinga was being built. In fact, I would drive by from Soledad coming back to my home base, basically, which was, you know, just a little south of Fresno. we had a home over there still. And so I watched that thing go from the ground up. And my interest was, well, let's try opening up a brand new facility. So I applied. Of course, some of the Corcoran sergeants and lieutenants and stuff were over there interviewing. It was basically one of those things, you just walked in and you interviewed. You sent your application over there and resume. And when I walked in there to be interviewed by a sergeant and the captain, it was my sergeant that was on the yard at Corcoran. And when I walked in, of course, the first thing he says was JR. And the captain says, you know him? He says, he's a go right now. He's here. He's going to be here. And so Pleasant Valley is where I stayed. And I retired in 2005 over there. So it's been a while. I ended up getting on the squad. I worked with a gang unit for a little while over there, but I ended up actually getting on the squad in 1997. And very shortly after, there was a change of the guard, if you will, inside there with lieutenants and captains. And I was invited to go to a Central California Gang Task Force meeting by the IGI lieutenant. And let me back up real quick on that. When I was interviewed for the squad, it kind of went good. I mean, it went good. And I was getting ready to leave, and the sergeant said, no, sit down. What do you know about gangs? And I just started telling him, off the cuff, what I knew. And he was like, wow, where did you learn this? I said, honestly, I learned from Soledad. I mean, I learned it from the inmates of Soledad. We had a lot of Nuestra Familia over there. We had a lot of ABs, structure, and it went from there. And so, I mean, I think that was on a Thursday or Friday, and I was hired, on Friday evening, and to go onto the squad as a tool officer, if you will. You probably knew that, they had different, categories. You were assigned to tools of all the, vocationals and stuff. I wasn't tools, but maybe a couple months. Like I said, the change of the guard was invited to go to this meeting. They were doing a big roundhouse table meeting, and I kind of said a few things there at the end. And, they asked me, it says, do you know anything? And I started talking, telling them, and my IGI lieutenant said on the way back, we were driving together, and he says, why didn't you tell me you knew about gangs? I said, well, you never asked me. He says, you're my new IGI. I mean, right there, he says, I said, well, what about, and I won't name the officer. He says, he's out, you're in. So it went from 97 all the way to, I think I was there 6 years on there or something like that, whatever. But it was a good gig. It was really good.
It sounds like, you paying attention paid off there in the end. That's good.
It did.
So you worked with all the prison gangs, Mexican Mafia, Nuestra Familia, Black Guerrilla Family. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Aryan Brotherhood's activities inside prison as you knew it?
I learned it more in Soledad, more than ever. And I think it was because we had a lot of AB associates, the brand, I'm just going to mention these as you already know them, as we had a lot of associates on the main line. They were active, but yet they were very quiet and laid back. They didn't profess as they kind of do now in kind of the new generation, is what I understand. And of course, as I was soon exiting, it was that way. They wanted to be known. They wanted to put those letters on them, and the A, B, or the brand, or the Shamrock or something like that. But very respectful. It wasn't and I'm just going to speak transparent. It wasn't oh, I'm white. It was just the opposite for me. I actually got along better with the blacks and the whites. I actually watched a lot of basketball with the blacks, in the day rooms than the whites. And, but the whites still respected me. Maybe because I was white or whatever. Got a lot of information from AB associates. They weren't just like, if you will, diarrhea of the mouth. You kind of just had to do that articulation. You know it. You know it.
You got that rapport, working.
I didn't get a chance to work it.
Yeah.
I did all my OJT at Old Folsom. So on the 5th tier.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Right out
quite
of
a
the academy.
place.
That was
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, it's a working
Oh, I
museum.
respect you.
Yeah. That's a
Yeah, I
working
respect you
museum.
for there. So I was
Yeah.
glad just to be on 3 tiers at Soledad. The 3rd tier was the highest tier.
Yeah. So,
So, but yeah, back to the
uh-huh.
AB.
AB
I
Associates, and we're
mean,
talking about also Nazi lowriders property. Was Peni around? I know they came a little bit
go
later
ahead.
when you worked there.
Is it still frozen?
No, you're
Okay.
good.
It must be, well, honestly, the Peni, the public enemy #1 and the Peni death squad was a little bit before for us at Pleasant Valley. That's when I started learning about them, right before Nazi lowriders. So we started validating, or I did, you know what I mean? I started validating the Penis, and I will say, a few names because they're up and, in their age and whatever. Devlin Stringfellow, he was one of the main guys as a Peni. You probably recognize the name. And pardon me, it's been a while. I'm going to probably not know everything. So, but they were actually out there. They were ruthless. They were wanting to make a name. And then the Nazi lowriders ended up slipping in there. And then you had a few knucklehead of Nazi lowriders that just would wear their shirts open. They had those NLRs. And I asked one day, did you earn it? And man, his head dropped. Did you earn those 3 letters? And his head dropped. I said, I know you didn't. I said, you better be careful. I was almost like throwing that articulated, compassionate thing so he could give me information. And he ended up giving me a lot of information. So from the Penis into the Nazi lowriders, we had an influx, and we had guys that were in their 30s, 35, almost pushing 40 of NLRs, but we didn't have enough documents, to go to Sacramento, SSU, Special Services Unit is where all of our validated, information went, and then they either denied it or accepted it. So we got a memo one day stating, because we've just been bombarding SSU with all these documents, and we got a memo. I mean, I want to say it was a Monday or Tuesday, gaffle them all, lock them all up. And I mean, we swept the yards simultaneously. We just basically got with the yards, had the yards locked down. These guys didn't know what was going on. They just thought maybe it was going to be a big search. And I gave them names, all these names. And I mean, our AdSeg was overflowed just with NLRs. We had actually a full building of 200 plus an overflow we had to use. And so with the officers on the yard, we hooked them all up at the same time. We got them all in there, and they didn't know what hit them. They had no idea except for, oh. And then I walked into AdSeg afterwards, and a couple guys says, so you got us, JR. And I said, documents. That's all I said. And I walked out. I wanted to make sure that these officers in AdSeg knew what we had and knew that they were, and I, wasn't saying that loud. Of course, we had meetings. I said, listen, they are the little brothers of the Aryan Brotherhood. They are under the umbrella, big time, all that. And from there, it just cascaded. It just, I started monitoring their mail. When you're in AdSeg, you only get a couple things. You get mail, maybe some canteen every other month or whatever. And so I was intercepting the mail. And of course, I wanted all their mail sent to me. And, you had to do it fast. You got that mail, you copied it on the copy machine, you shot that mail right back out to the mailroom. You don't hold it for a day or two and let it sit on your desk, because they know the timing when they're getting their mail from whatever, Oxford, Whittier, California, whatever. They want that mail back in return. So it just cascaded. It just opened up doors, and, people were writing. And then we just started validating off there. And then Pelican Bay did have a few Nazi lowrider members. So then that stuff was going up there, and we were intercepting it as well. So, going to the streets, re-enveloped, remailed, and that's a direct link, a member to an associate or whatever. So. But,
wow. Yeah, I know it was busy, 87 through 93 when I left California Department of Corrections and went to Seattle, where I grew up, and worked gangs up there. I know it was busy down there, and I still communicated with California Department of Corrections officers, because Washington and other states, of
Yes.
course, were getting bombarded also with a lot of those groups. So, JR, I know you have a
Yes.
lot of different war stories, but can you think of any particular situation with whether it be Aryan Brotherhood, Nazi Little Riders, P9, or any of the white gangs that got pretty tense, maybe caused some concern? And what transpired, and how did you deal with that, and how did it come out?
Mainly, at first there was, they aligned with the Soreños, the Southerners, the mafia, the AB, the whites, they aligned with them, but there was a time where, and it's all politics. It's all about money or whatever. And they got into a pretty good, what do they call it now? Melee. We called it riots back then, but they got into a pretty good little one at one time. It was on Pleasant Valley State. I think it was on Charlie Yard, C Yard, and it was just about monies. And the whites were getting too far deep over into trying to get too much of the Mexican mafia, and we had mafia on the yard until I say
Better.
Okay. So yeah, like I said, no shots fired. It was just basically, I think we locked up probably 20, and within a week we let them back out. It was just, we found out, and even the guys themselves said, hey, it was just a big disrespect over some gambling and money. They didn't call it extortions things, but we did have another one with the blacks, and I think that at that time it was with the Crips, and there was back then, and I don't know if an AB associates, I will say, I can't say just members because they would have been locked up, but that was pretty intense. That called for another couple yards. We had A, B, and C, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, and Delta yards, and then our ADSEG yard. But we had a couple more yards come on there. And I tried to recall the year. I'm sorry, that probably was, I was on the squad, so I don't recall the exact year, but that was pretty intense there. There was a few hundred on that one.
It sounds like it. No, unless you have done time or worked on the inside, it's really hard to describe. I used to say, corrections like 90% boredom and 10% sheer terror. You can go from zero, nothing's happened, everything looks calm, and just one thing lights the powder keg
of those long nights of shootings, and then you got to all the evidence going, you got to post everything out. I mean, we're out there, that everybody's on the yard for hours upon hours, prone out and trying to get all the information, get it all quailed up and whatever. And so, it.
Yeah, buddy. So after your career there in CDC, JR, what did you do then?
Basically just kicked it for a while. I did a lot of fishing, did a lot of bass fishing. And then I was getting a little bit, people say I'll never go back, whatever. I got a contract with the Department of Homeland Deputy Chiefs, but I put my application in, whatever. It was a private company. What we were doing the polo shirt type thing, clipboard in our hand, monitoring the illegals, aliens that were in the detention facilities throughout the United States, whether it be Florida, California, whatever. And so I got hired, went to Miami, Florida for a week of training, pay a lot of paperwork stuff. And our reports would be sent up to Washington, D.C. So I worked a straight year from June to June over in the Mojave Desert. Actually, it was Mira Loma. You probably heard of that. It was ran by the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, right next door to Lancaster State Prison. Right. I mean, I could walk right over there, just right there. I never did though. I knew some guys over there, but I just didn't want everybody to know, oh, JR is over here now. It was great though. I mean, LA Sheriff's, some great people over there. The captain I worked with and the lieutenant that was over the entire thing, plus DOJ was there, and got some great contacts with there, worked with them. But basically what I was doing, I was just making sure that these illegals, there was 1,800 there in that facility, had what we're supposed to have. And I monitor their medical, that make sure they off the bus, you know, all this kind of, you know. And then a year went by and I was looking to be sure if there was, and they called me again. I denied it 3 times because they kept calling me. And I said, we got a lot of the guys. Why are you? I'm afraid you're not going to let me off this island if I get over to Puerto Rico. And 2 days later, they called me for Alabama. And I mean, I took it. I was gone in a week. You know, and so I've been here ever since. So about almost 12 years. So,
All right.
like I said, parents, cousins, everybody's in North Carolina. I'm in Alabama. I felt like I was coming back home. I'm close enough to my cousins, but far enough away that I don't have to go over there and help them every weekend when they need a new decking or something,
Right.
you know, on their porch or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I do.
I mean,
brother.
we're only 2 hours away, 3 hours away, but you know, if I was living, oh man. So I worked out here with well, I won't say the sheriff's department, but you know, I will say that they were on the, you know, that program, 60 Days In.
Right.
So I did work in that sheriff's department there. They had a office for me down in the basement area with their squad. It was kind of like a squad. And I had my own office and I just did my tours of the place. I think that time they had females and males. And I think it was only about, I want to say 400, maybe 100 females and the rest were males. Of course, a smaller place. Did the same thing I did back in the Mojave Desert. And then I just basically, after a while, they resigned. And I've done a few things. I've worked for G4S Security Solutions as a supervisor over about maybe 23, 25 officers I was supervising.
Appreciate you coming on the show and telling us, yeah, about your long illustrious career. And I know you had a lot of fun. I know there was some tense times, but you know, it's all good. And
Yes.
I appreciate, again, you sharing that information with us for people to better understand what goes on the inside. And I'm glad to hear that you're over there having a good time, living a good life. And if you're ever out here in, you know, ever in Hawaii, look me up. I'll give you the local boy tour. All right.
Awesome. Appreciate it. It was a pleasure, Gabe.
Okay, JR. You take care, brother.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.